yeah, it's just, there's a lot of crazy changes. I still am like, I know I just said this to you, but I'm like still kind of having trouble like processing that this actually happened. Like, this is absolutely unbelievable.
Because remember, I saw like I like, you know, I have like Apple News, and it gives me notifications about like stuff that happens every morning.
Yeah.
And like one morning, like I want to say it was like almost a year ago at this point. It was like the ACT announces major changes to their tests coming 2025 or something like that. And I read through the article. And I was like,
Yeah,
I cannot
well,
believe
we kind of assumed one of those things was going to happen. Like maybe you get more time or less questions or something.
Not
but
all three.
Not,
Science
well, 4
optional.
too, because he didn't mention as much, but math is no longer going to be 5 answer choices. It will just be 4.
Oh.
So that's, I know that's an underrated change that I know a lot of people aren't really like, but that's a huge deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
like,
like
that
less
goes-
work.
Significantly less work. Yeah, that could save people like an entire
Because
few
it's
questions.
usually what they do is there's like 2 questions or that are obviously out immediately.
And
so
then
you
there's-
see with 3.
Yes.
And then like as you're working through, oh that one's too high, you take that
Yeah.
one, and then you always end up with 2. But like if you don't always end up with 2, you're like
You
get
might-
halfway through and you're like, oh my god, it can't be
Right.
that because it's too
Yeah.
high or too low or.
So this
outrageous.
could be a lot of favorable changes for students.
What
But
are the chances if like so many people start getting like I know this is probably not gonna happen, but like let's say
well,
like,
they might
all of a
dilute
sudden-
it at a point where like, because for me, I didn't get every question right, but I was still given a perfect score on some of the sections because
Yeah.
like the weightage, the test was hard enough where they had.
Mhm.
So like if you get one question wrong, it might immediately drop you to a 35 or something like that might happen.
But like
where they-
even then, like let's say like a bunch like it goes from like what percentage of people do you think get a 56 on the ACT?
under 1%.
Under 1%. What if
Yeah.
it jumps to like 7 or like 5%?
I would be blown away if that. I would be so surprised if that happens.
Right, okay.
Because at that point
It's
it would be
not-
like
yeah.
not very many people are getting, like there's already not very many people in that conversation, and then for all of them to do it would just be like a unprecedented thing. I mean, I don't anticipate that happening. But yeah, I'm not sure to be honest. I think I'll do some more reading these next few weeks and see what I can come up with. But as of now, this is just like
It's gonna be easier, but I don't think it's gonna be like.
no, it won't be like a
person who-
cakewalk.
A person who
No.
gets a 28 is not gonna go score a 35 just
No, no,
because
no.
the change.
Right.
They'll do better marginally,
Yeah.
but it's
They'll
not
probably
like,
do like what do you think? Like maybe 2 to 4 better.
somewhere that was kind of what I was hoping, like 2 to 3 points better you could say for
Yeah,
pretty
it's
certain.
like-
But anyway, okay, so today's topic, sorry, went a little tangent there. Today's topic, do you remember I showed you that breakdown? There's like punctuation, grammar usage, sentence structure, that whole thing.
Mhm.
The first 3 categories I called like easy questions, the next 3 I called more difficult, right? So today's idea is I gave you punctuation rules. That's only 13% of the test, but those are super important because they're easy points. You should pretty much get all of those. There's a rule, you apply the rule, done. No thinking. Now I'm going to give you the next 2 categories have some thinking involved. They're still rule-based, but there's a lot more thinking involved. And those are the grammar usage, sentence structure. The grammar usage is unique in a way that it's more similar to punctuation where there's a grammatical and an agrammatical. There's a right and a wrong. Easy. If you know the rule, you know the answer. For the most part, that's kind of how it goes. For that second part, the sentence structure stuff, I can get to a point where both answers are grammatical. And you're supposed to be an editor, right? So how do you pick between 2 things that are grammatical? Well, there are things that the English big bosses that make all these decisions and make the rules, they say even if they both are grammatical, this is right and this is wrong. This is better than this. So those are the things I'm going to teach you today. There's 2 main things with that. Now, obviously, I can't teach you everything. There's not enough time in these to teach you every single grammar rule there is imaginable. So I'm going to focus on the ones that, there's 4 that I've picked out, that I would say, for 1, come up the most, and 2, people miss the most. I've found the ones that kind of fit in between that. So there's going to be 6 total golden grammar rules. There'll be 4 that are grammar usage, and then 2 that are more sentence structure based. I would say these are the 6 most important grammar rules, grammar-ish, because not all of them are grammar, but this concept. These rules are super important, and they're applicable pretty much across the entire test. So I'll teach these. I don't know if we're going to have time to do a practice passage, but the next time I'm here we will, and then I'll point out each time we see one of these rules, like, hey, this is where this came from, and then you'll be able to kind of tell. So there's 6 rules here. We'll go through each of them. We'll do some examples. I kind of like the voting system that we've been doing recently, so I might stick with that today for some of the examples. Okay, so first rule. I'll caveat this also with saying some of these may seem obvious. I'm going to give you a strategy that you didn't need to do some of the examples because they're easy. I'm telling you the ACT is not going to be as easy as the examples I give you because I'm trying to illustrate the point first. So even if it seems obvious I don't need to do this, just trust me, do what I'm telling you to. It's gonna make this easier. So, I just need you to trust me. I need a little bit of trust here. Okay, first thing. This marker sucks. I'm gonna try a different one. Whatever. Subjects and verbs should always agree. Okay, now I'm sure you've learned this in your elementary, middle school, high school days. You know that subjects and verbs should agree. In case anyone doesn't know at this point, the subject is what the sentence is about. Can't really have a sentence without a subject. The verb is the action, what's actually happening in the sentence or what's being told. You can't have a sentence without a verb. So both of these things are essential in pretty much every sentence, and it's important that they agree. So what exactly does agreement mean? Well, there's certain ways you conjugate the verb to match the subject. I'm not going to teach you that because you know that. You'll be able to hear it by yourself. So let's just go straight into an example of where they need to agree, and I'll tell you exactly how the ACT is going to test this. So let's say we have an example. We've got students in a classroom right now. The students in the classroom listens well. Students in the classroom listens well. Everyone can hear there's something wrong with that, yes?
Yeah.
So the first thing that you need to do before you do anything, everyone hears something's wrong because this example is simple. On the ACT it won't be. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, and I need you to trust me and do this with me, when you identify the question is asking about something in agreement, check and circle what it's asking to agree. So here, okay, the subject is what? The students. Okay, so I'm going to circle that. The verb is what? Listens. Okay. Now the trick here is put those two things and smash them right next to each other. The students listens. Does that make any sense? No, that's stupid. The students what? Listen. So now you know. Okay, now I'm sure you could have done that without doing this whole thing, but this process will make it a lot easier. What's up?
Will you grab one that you would like imagine be on the ACT that like could trick our brains or something that we like read?
Yeah. Sorry, say it one more time.
Will you put like a example of this?
Yes, I'll give you a better example of this. This is a stupid example. I just want to illustrate the point. This is the idea.
Right.
Now, why does this question even get missed? This seems obvious to you guys, right? But this exact question will get missed on the test. The reason is, do you have a guess? Go for it.
Is it because they both end with S, so people just think?
Sometimes, but most people can hear it. The trick is actually, most people who get this wrong are not first language English speakers because they're not able to identify the subject so naturally as we are. So you all heard the sentence and are like, oh, students, obviously, right? But some people think it's just a word connected to the verb. So they might think classroom singular, classroom listens. Yeah, that makes sense. So then they'll pick listens. That's kind of what happens. The ACT is very aware of this phenomenon that international students struggle with, and English speakers will struggle with, but to make the English speakers get this type of question wrong, you need to make them forget the subject. So it's easy when a sentence is this short, the subject is kind of like ringing in your head, you already know what it is and you're waiting for the verb. What the ACT will do is put a billion gajillion words here, a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of by the way phrases and whatever, and then go here. So if you're reading all of this, you will have forgotten this.
You know what? I think I saw a question just like this in the last
Yes.
February ACT. I literally, it was like, I usually don't skip over English questions because I don't.
Yeah.
But like, I skipped over it and I came back to it at the very end and I got it right.
This is the idea. If you circle the subject, it just makes the whole thing that you're talking about where they'll put stuff in the middle is eliminated if you just circle the verb. And
Like
circle the subject.
because I was only reading like a sentence back
Right.
and I just couldn't.
Yeah, you have to keep going and find it, circle it. So that's the idea here. I'll give you one more example that's maybe a little bit more challenging, but still, you could probably do with your intuition, but I want you to follow this strategy here with me. Okay. Say the basket of strawberries, blueberries, and blackberries. Passed around the circle. Okay, we've got a sentence here. Let's say you know on the test that they're asking about subject and verb agreement here. So what's the subject?
The basket.
The basket. Not the stuff, the basket. Okay, what's the verb? Were passed, right? This is another thing I don't know how much you guys have studied this in school. The two verbs that are right next to each other act together. They're called, the first one's an auxiliary verb. That's like modifying the second one. So these go together. So I would call this, okay, the basket were passed. No, the basket was passed. Right. but it becomes extremely obvious when you put them next to each other. I'm sure you guys could have done that without doing this little circle thing, but it becomes very easy when there's like this blabber that comes in between. If you do this, you're gonna save yourself like a minute. Sometimes you get caught up just trying to figure out what the subject is. Just go find it, circle it, find the verb, and then just put them right next to each other. Because your intuition, I know, your intuition is capable of doing this if the words are smashed together. You immediately, like anytime I say the basket were passed, any of you would just be, oh no, the basket was passed, right? But if there's a bunch of stuff in between, it might take you a few seconds, you might make a mistake, something like that. This strategy will ensure you do not do that. So find the subject, find the verb, smash them together. Make sense?
Yep.
Online, does that make sense? Okay, cool. All right, let's do a different type of agreement now. Not subjects and verbs, but pronoun agreement. Okay. Jeez, sorry. Okay, pronouns must agree in gender and number with their antecedents. Okay, antecedent might be a new word. You guys know this word?
It's like what the pronouns refer
Exactly. Rakav goes to the store, he was tired. Okay, Rakav is the antecedent because he is referring to Rakav. Make sense? I don't care if you ever learn that word, you don't have to ever say that word again, but you just know that's, I wish there was a better way to phrase this rule, but this just has to be there. So, in case you're wondering, that's what an antecedent is. Okay, now important thing here, in English, not every word is gendered, right? In other languages there are sometimes. When something is plural, the number is more important than the gender. So when you say something like, that is plural, you only have to agree pronoun-wise and number. There's only there. There's not like a feminine and masculine version of that, right? So number trumps when you're in a plural situation. Okay, gender is also important because we, on the test, are still just going to use he and she for anything singular.
Yeah.
It's completely acceptable in our society to use there as a singular pronoun. That's not going to be acceptable on the test. We're trying to go as traditional as possible here on the test. So although that is totally okay in our society, it is not okay on this test. So just use he and she for singular stuff. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Now, let's try. I'm assuming if I give you an obvious example, you guys know how to do this,
Yeah.
right? So I'm just going to kind of skip to a more challenging one. Say each of the boys. Prom's coming up soon, right? You guys are serious?
Is it?
Soonish.
Or junior.
I don't get to go. I'm a sophomore.
Oh man, okay. But yeah, prom will be here soon, so I'm just gonna do a bunch of prom themed questions today. Okay, each of the boys. Okay, so you got a bunch of people slow dancing on the dance floor. This thing says each of the boys dances with, and I'll give you 3 options for pronouns. His, their, our. Partner slowly. Okay, and we're going to vote on this. I'll give you a few seconds to try to figure out what you think here. Okay, everyone have an answer?
Yes.
Okay, how many people think it is his? Okay, how many people think it is their? Okay, how many people think it's our? Okay, no one raised their hand for our. Good, that was ridiculous. Okay, so our was my stupid answer choice here. Their is what your intuition says, right? Each of the boys dances with their partner. Here's the tricky part. The subject is not boys, the subject is each of the boys. Each makes it singular his.
Wow.
Now I'll give you a great little cheat code for this. I've taught this in the other class too, so some of you have had me before and know this little rule. This is called each is one body, and I want you to capitalize it the way I did. Each is one body, like that. Now the idea is these 3 words. Each, one, and body are very important. The reason is, if you use those words in your subject, each of the boys, you could say, what am I doing? Anyone, no one, nobody, anybody, you see these words that kind of fit into these, right? We have one, body, each. Those words actually make your subject singular. And what's really great about this rule is it tells you each is one body. So this is an amazing rule that's going to tell you these are the 3 words you're looking for, and they make them singular. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's the idea with this. So that's why each of the boys is actually a singular. Yeah, okay. I know that's kind of against your intuition, right? You probably want to say there. You hear there.
His sounded better, but I was just trying to like.
I
feel
was
boys.
so worried that like I was just really dumb and like did not understand what you were saying, but
No, yeah, this is an important rule, and at some point, the more advanced you get, his will start to sound right. But at some point at the base level, there sounds correct because you're hearing
Right.
boys there, right? It just
like and I
So-
feel like if I would say this sentence, I probably would have said
yes,
there.
I say there all the time. I make this mistake all the time when I'm speaking. Of course, it's fine to be agrammatical when you're speaking, but yeah, that's why this is a rule. Remember, I told you there will be sometimes you don't trust your intuition because there's a rule. This is a great example of that. Don't trust your intuition, trust the rule. The rule is right. So go ahead.
Would there be correct if each of that like they all had the same partner and they're all dancing with that singular partner?
No, because still each would make it singular.
Okay,
If
I
you
didn't
wanted
know.
this to be there, you would
Yeah.
just say the boys.
I was just wondering because like with the there part kind of makes it sound like they all have the same.
The same partner.
Yeah.
Each just makes it singular.
Okay.
So anytime there's each singular pronoun. If you wanted, I don't actually know how you modify the sentence to make that true. but
Yeah, it just
That's
sounded
a good
like that. I
question,
didn't
yeah.
know.
No idea. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
wow,
more about
so
this
it's-
needs to agree with this, not so much the partner. It's about the subject. Right?
Mhm.
So that's the idea. Okay. Does everyone understand this rule? You're gonna agree your pronouns in number and in gender. This is pretty much, I'm not gonna like do an example, but this is pretty much the same idea. This is different, but for the most part, if you figure out this is what they're asking about, just circle the 2 things and smash them together. That pretty much works in any agreement situation. Because your intuition is very great when the things are right next to each other. It's not so great when they're super far apart and you could potentially forget what is what. So, same strategy here, circle, smash together. Make sense? Online, does that make sense? Does this each is one body thing make sense too? Cool. Yes. Good. And also, Zoom, feel free to just like speak up if you like have a question. I sometimes am not looking so much at the screen if you're like raising your hand or something. So just like unmute yourself and talk. I'm totally fine with that. Okay, that's one pronoun rule. There's gonna be 2 more here, specifically about pronouns that are important. So we'll quick cover those ones.
So in that case, even though like let's say the sentence is nobody dances with their partner,
Nobody dances with his or her partner.
so yeah.
Yes. So if you have something that's like you don't know the gender, you use both. If
Okay.
it's singular, you can say his or her.
Okay.
Is the idea, yeah. That's it gets complicated in our modern society. There might be acceptable because it could be singular,
Mm-hmm.
but now, at the time that these tests are written, that's not
Yeah.
so much a prevalent
Okay.
thing, so it's kind of hard to, but yeah, his or her would be the correct thing. If you don't know the
Yeah.
gender, you would say his or her. Makes sense? Yes. Okay. Now, here we go. Another pronoun rule. Pronouns should be in the correct case. There's 2 different cases of pronouns. There's I really love when people do this, when things are named exactly what they are. In biology, especially in school, there's a lot of things that are just named randomly, named after a person, named because it sounds cool, named because whatever. English has done a great job of naming things exactly as they are, which is super helpful. So the 2 cases are subjective, which has a really nice meaning that it's the subject of a sentence. And the other one, as you can guess, is objective. And that, of course, means it's the object of a sentence. Now, when I sit here and think about pronouns, I can't just rip out of my head, oh, he or him is subject or objective. Which I can do, though, and I'm going to ask you to kind of memorize these 2 sentences or something along the same lines. This is kind of what I do. This is my test. I have a very simple, and feel free to change the word sandwich to something you like if you don't like sandwiches, which is insane, by the way. But anyway, this is the concept you're going to do. In this sentence, the blank is acting as the subject of the sentence. Everyone agree with that? So now this is very simple where I know your intuition will take over. So, okay, I don't know, is he or him the subjective case? Him eats a sandwich, he eats a sandwich. Which one's right? He. So obviously he is the subjective. And him is the objective. Okay, let's try it with I, me. I eat a sandwich, me eats a sandwich. Right? So same idea. I, me. Do you see where I'm going with this? Now you can do this with
Yeah.
plural too, and just go on. You could do this by yourself. If you want to check the opposite way, also okay. I use like to make an object. I would say, here's the subject. Sends a letter to, and then this is the one I'm looking at. This is the object. So let's just say he here, just random placeholder. Now if I want to check if something's objective, plug it in here. Okay, now I don't know is she or her objective? So let's think. He sends a letter to she?
No.
He sends a letter to her.
Yeah.
Okay, so her is objective. She would be subjective. Does that make sense? And you can continue. This also applies to who and whom. So who eats a sandwich, whom eats a sandwich, you might not be able to tell that intuitively, right? The idea is who acts exactly as he, whom acts exactly as him. Does that make sense? So who is the objective case, whom is the, who is the subjective case, whom is the objective case. Sorry, I said that backwards. So if you ever get stuck on a who versus whom, pretend it's he and him, and then you'll immediately be able to get it right. Does that make sense? This is the idea. Yeah, go ahead.
But can't you say like he sent a letter to who, like as a
No.
question?
To whom? To whom was the letter sent? Would be the correct way to say that. Yeah. To who is incorrect. No. We say that all the time because obviously we don't speak in perfect grammar, and that's another thing you kind of have to. You know the rule. That's yeah. Whom is the correct thing there. And you could also flip the order. You could say to whom did he send the letter. It wouldn't be to who did he send the letter. That's not correct.
What do you like switch the who and whom with again?
Whatever you want. Any of he and him is what I do because it just comes intuitively to me. So like I would say this, he sent a letter to him. Okay, so then it should be whom, not who. That's kind of exactly how I solve these. So this is the simple format of how you would get to, okay, what is subjective, what is objective. Now let's actually apply it. I'm going to erase this. You guys got this?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'll get rid of this quick and then I'll give you an example here. Here's an example. The example reads, stop telling Michael and pronoun what to do. Stop telling Michael and I, stop telling Michael and me.
I, right?
Everyone thinks I. Online, do you guys think I? I'm seeing one thumb. Okay, so, two thumbs. Some more people voting. It's actually me. Why is it me? Okay, let's think about this. The idea here is did anyone have a kid like in their school that was like, oh, like me and my friend went to this, no, my friend and I, did you have someone that would always correct you like that?
Yeah.
That's why people are so conditioned to think anytime they see blank and, they want to put I, every single time. That's true if the thing is acting as the subject of the sentence. In this case, this is the object. They are being told, right? So the way to do this would be, and this is my preferred strategy, I'll show you another shortcut in a second, but this is the preferred strategy. Okay, this is what I'm looking at. Is this acting as the subject or the object? The object, right? It's being told. This is the object, so that means I need the objective case. Is I or me objective? Me. And if you, okay, maybe I don't know. Me eats a sandwich, I eat a sandwich, that means that's subjective, so me is objective. That's one way to solve it. That's my preferred method. That's how you should do it. That's how I would expect you to do it. Totally okay if that's, sometimes people struggle. Maybe you guys didn't immediately understand this was the object of the sentence. It can be tricky sometimes. A shortcut you can do that will always work in this situation is just get rid of that. Stop telling I what to do. That's ridiculous. Stop telling me what to do, right? So now it's intuitive. Now your intuition is like, oh yeah, it's obviously me. But sometimes it's hard when you put it the other way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like imagine if I wrote this backwards. Stop telling I and Michael what to do. You'd be like, what the heck? That's ridiculous, right? Go ahead.
Can you make a sentence where I is the correct answer, not me, and like do the same strategy? How would that?
How would it look? It would be the exact same thing except you do it. I'll give you an
So like
example.
my
here.
mom and I went to the grocery
Yes,
store.
my mom and I went to the grocery store, not my mom and me. Because that's the subject of the sentence. But in this case, this is acting as the object. Does that
makes sense?
make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I see what you mean.
Okay, that's the overarching idea. I'll give you one more example we'll vote on too that I hope will drive home the point. And I'll show you the power of changing the order of the words. So in this case, no one ever writes like I and Michael, because then you'd immediately know, okay, that's stupid. It should be right,
Yeah.
Michael and me. You would have got that right away, right? So if I change the order, try to ignore the order here. So I'm trying to teach you, don't trust your intuition right now. Use the rule, use the strategy, and you'll be able to get this question right. Don't use your intuition right now. I'm going to write it in a weird order, and you can only get this if you use the rule, not if you use your intuition. I'm telling you that now. Okay, let's go back to a prom example. Okay. The example says Gina and he or him are going to be the cutest couple at prom. Everyone have an answer choice?
Yeah.
Okay. How many people think Gina and he? Okay, how many people think Gina and him? Okay, I got at least one thumb for Gina and him. This is, everyone agrees Gina and him sounds better,
Yeah.
right? If you were to trust your intuition, Gina and him would be the right answer. This is actually Gina and he. How do you do it? Okay, you know this is what's going on here, right? Is that the subject or the object of the sentence? Subject. So you want the subjective case. He eats a sandwich, him eats a sandwich. Okay, he is subjective. He. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Now, the reason I told you that this was a little... I wrote it in a way where you couldn't use your intuition. If I'd flipped it, it would be obvious if he and Gina are the cutest couple, right? That becomes obvious, he and Gina.
Yeah.
But if you say it as Gina and he, people are like, what the heck is... That's not right. And they'll pick Gina and him because that's... So normally this would be written as he and Gina. I'm warning you, I know this sounds stupid, it's not normally written like this. It was just an exercise to test what's going on. Okay, let's say you want to use that second strategy. Maybe you, oh, is this the subject or the object? I don't know. Remember I told you you can eliminate it and make it one thing?
Mm-hmm.
So let's eliminate it in one thing. Okay, this becomes tricky because I have a plural verb here, right? Just make it is for now. Okay, him is going to be the cutest, he is going to be the cutest. He is. So now, you know it's he. There's two different ways you can solve this. I prefer the first way because you will never get the question wrong if you do that. In this case, you'll probably get it, but occasionally people will screw themselves up with this rule. So that's why I teach you the first way. I think it's better. And that's how the rule is intended to be used. So does this make sense?
Yeah.
There's two important cases here. Two different ways you can use them. Online, does this make sense? Okay. Good. Okay, I know that's a little bit tricky. This is hard. I understand it's tricky, but oops. Yeah, that's what we want. Okay, now there's one more. It's gonna blow your mind. I just told you there was two cases. There's actually a third one that's a little, but it doesn't really fit in with these ones because it's very specific. And you use this one with your intuition pretty much all the time. You don't really need my help. Okay, I'm holding this marker. Is this him marker, is this he marker, or is this his marker?
His marker.
Obviously. So that's the possessive case. There's only one case where people tend to find this tricky. And that's the one thing I'm going to show you here. So the fourth rule is that possessive pronouns should be used before gerunds. You guys heard that word before, gerunds?
Yeah.
That's if in case anyone doesn't know, it's an ing word basically. You take a verb, you add ing. Running, jumping, shooting, writing, whatever. Ing words are gerunds. So the idea here is that right before a gerund, you must use a possessive pronoun. The gerund is possessive, it's not the object. People want to use the objective. It's supposed to be the possessive. So for example, I'm not going to make you vote or like try to figure this out, but I'll just show you the incorrect and how good it sounds. You guys ever do, like, if you're wearing a hoodie, do you ever like bite your sleeves? Okay, don't, that's disgusting. But like, this is a common like bad habit that when I was in high school, it's a super common thing. People would just be chewing on their sleeves. And then they go home and their mom's like, dude, what the heck, like don't do that. So that's where I got this example from. Might be a little outdated now. Okay, him biting his sleeves annoyed his mother. Everyone agrees that sounds good?
Yeah.
Not right.
No, that's not.
It should be, what, how do you fix this? His, I know it sounds weird,
His biting.
his biting his sleeves. Doesn't that sound weird? Everyone
Yeah.
agrees it's really weird? Okay, yeah.
I would have said like his biting of his like
Of his
of
sleeves?
his sleeves. I
That's-
don't know.
I would just rewrite
Probably
the
be
whole
okay,
sentence.
too.
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
but
weird.
his biting. If there's a gerund, possessive pronoun. Somebody had asked me a really interesting question I never thought about on the other side, but she was like, why can't I use him? Normally I'm like, well, just it's the rule. But it got me thinking, the reason you can't use him here is because this is not the object, right? Him would have to be, that's the objective case. This is not the object here, right?
Yeah, that's
So you
Right.
can't say him biting his sleeves. It needs to be his biting.
yeah.
But the rule is simple enough where if you see a gerund and there's a pronoun right before it, just make it possessive.
Mhm.
And if you ever get stuck, okay, wait, what's the possessive pronoun for this or that? There's going to be this really cool tool that you have on the test. No one knows about this. It's the thing you're holding in your hand. The pencil is the most overpowered tool you could possibly ask for. Just sit here and look at it. Is this his pencil, him pencil, what is it? And then you can figure it out for any pronoun. Okay, let's say I'm talking about myself. My pencil, done. Okay, maybe it's her pencil, done. Okay, it's their pencil, it belongs to them. It's just, that's the way to do it. Just use the thing right in your hand.
I
And
feel
then
like
go.
a computer running ChatGPT would be a little more helpful then.
Maybe, but I don't know if that's ever going to be allowed on the test. So
Maybe next year.
maybe next year, yeah, who knows. Okay, does this rule make sense? Online, does this make sense to you guys? Okay, great. Yeah, it's not much to say. What they did do, the way it was explained to me was, you could say like, mom can't stand him, fine. Mom can't stand his biting. So like, do you see how they're like, specifically she can't stand his biting, that's like a thing together,
Yeah.
versus she can't stand him is the object. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
It's not related to the rule, like this specific rule, but for like all the rules, how do you like remember all of them? Like, what do you do to like?
Remember, the thing you can do with the, like I told you with the punctuation, you can kind of look over the sheet and then practice, but with these, it's all application. Looking over the sheet is going to do you no good. I was going to tell you at the end, but I'll just get to it now. At the end, what I normally say at the end of punctuation, look over it for 5 minutes a day and you're going to be good. You've already done that, you're probably locked in with that. This, you actually simply cannot remember without actually doing it. So when we get to practicing, every time we see a rule like this, I'm going to alert it. I'll tell you, hey, remember this rule that we talked about? This is an example of it. And the more you practice, like Manoj says, it starts to become second nature. You're not thinking, oh yeah, this was the fourth rule we learned in that one lecture we talked about. You'll just start to know it. So like, it's not so much remembering them, it's just applying them. The more you do it, that's why a lot of the times words like this, antecedent, gerund, I don't care that you know the word, because eventually this is going to mean nothing to you. It's just like, oh, I know what it actually is. I know how to do it. So that's the idea. You just have to practice. That's kind of the way to get all of these is just practicing them. And we'll work in time at the end. I spend the last day I'm here, we're just going to practice the whole time. So like I've worked in time the closer we get to the test where you'll just practice. I just want to get enough like content thrown at you so you know and you have all the basis to do it, and then eventually we'll just practice. So yeah, those were all of the main grammar rules, those golden grammar rules. I'm gonna get to sentence structure. I'm gonna say this one more time. There's nothing agrammatical about the answers I give you here that are incorrect. Incorrect and agrammatical are not the same anymore. We're getting to a point where it's fine, it's grammatical, it follows all of the English rules, but it's not correct because there's a better way to say it. So I know this is going to be confusing. I've told you in the past, hey, you can't make subjective choices, right? And these things may seem subjective to you, but they're not subjective. The big bosses of English all agree that this is right, this is wrong. So it's not agrammatical, but it's wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is different here. I know it's a confusing little distinction, but okay. So this has to do with sentence structure. We'll start with, there's only two here. Let's start with parallel form. Okay. Sentences should be written parallel form. Okay. You guys heard parallel form before? Heard that little phrase?
Isn't it when like the door slamming, the
Yes, that's the idea. Don't give them too much information, but yes, that's the idea. That's what we're doing here. You just want sentences to kind of fit together. They need to flow smoothly, and there's a specific way that everyone agrees that this should be done. I'll just go into an example. Have you guys seen the Barbie movie?
Yes.
That's crazy. We haven't watched the Barbie movie?
I did.
It's an amazing movie. Anyway, but actually, let me write it the other way. I'm gonna write it the other way to make this a little easier. Okay. This sentence reads, that does not look, sorry, this looks wrong. Cooking, reading, and interior decor are some of Barbie's hobbies. Does everyone agree this sentence is grammatical? There's nothing wrong with this grammatically, right? This is a fine sentence. There is, however, a better way to put this. This is not agrammatical, but the ACT would consider this incorrect. It's not agrammatical, it's grammatically fine, but there's a better way to write this sentence, basically. Does anyone know what exactly could you do to this sentence to make it written better?
instead of decorative.
Interior decorating.
Decorating, yes, both of you are correct, good. So, parallel form means to keep these things kind of flowing together, like he had said. And the main example they use is the door slamming. So it'd be like the door slamming, the light flicking, the whatever. And you need to keep that same form. So here, cooking, reading, these are gerunds, right? So then let's make this a gerund. Interior decorating. That's the idea. Does that make sense? This one seems pretty obvious once you know the rule. Just keep the things parallel, especially when they're in a list. Especially when they're in a list. One more example. I don't know if this is a universal experience, but I feel like it is. Do you have an old neighbor that's like way too obsessed with the garden?
Yeah.
You know, just like always planting stuff or like worried about the landscaping and this and that. I was, back when I was in high school, I wrote this example because I was like, just looking out my window and there's just some dude here sitting, planting stuff all over the place. So I came up with it way back when, but, okay. He planted roses. Front yard. Okay. Sentence reads, he planted roses to flank the front yard and daisies which flank the back porch.
Would you change which to two?
Yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable answer. You could change this, get rid of the comma, and say two. What's another thing you could do? Change two to which, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. My point is they both are correct. It's just they need to be the same. That's the idea here. Okay, really quick. Why did I not put a comma here? There's two different clauses and there's a fanboys. Why didn't I put a comma?
Is that a full independent clause after that?
Exactly. So if you remember the rule, independent, comma, fanboys, independent, right? Here we have, he planted roses to flank the front yard. Everyone agrees that's independent. Second clause, daisies which flank the back porch. No, that's dependent, right? So there isn't a comma there because independent, fanboys, dependent, no comma. Just wanted to check, we still know that. Good. Okay. Does this rule make sense? So write in parallel form when you can. Go ahead.
Will there be like a couple where like there will be no change?
Yes. Oh yeah. That happens all the time. Yeah.
Okay.
It's completely okay. Like this could have been written like this. And then answer A is no change.
Okay.
And then they'll give you some BS answers at BCD. That's totally possible. They're more just testing you know that this is right. It doesn't particularly matter which.
So the other ones
Yeah.
won't be like two.
No. Because the thing is they'll always underline one portion and they're only testing you one portion. So if this had said which flank, right? And here's the underline. Okay, this is question 1 and it's asking here. Right now, no change is not the right answer, right? It should be which. It could just as well have been underline this, and now you have to change it to 2. But they're not going to ask you to like adjust both or anything. It's normally one underlined portion that they're asking you about. So, yeah, that won't happen. I tend to make the examples in here a little bit harder than what you'd actually see because like it would underline something and it'll tell you where the mistake is if there is one. But for me, I want you to be able to like look at the thing and just feel, oh, that's where the mistake is. So I'm trying to make a point that both are acceptable, but they just need to be the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, online, does this rule stick? Make sense? Go ahead, yeah.
If like both were two, but they use like another word for flank, like beside the front yard, would like then to be parallel, would you change that to flank?
I wouldn't, I guess to be parallel probably, but I don't anticipate that being as much of an issue. Because a lot of the times they want you to, it has to do with the verbiage.
Okay.
But if you're using like additional words, then they would just be like, well, why are you trying to be parallel? These are just two totally unrelated clauses. But if they're related, like they are, we know the word, the form is something flank the something, something flank the something. So then they would ask you to be parallel, but I doubt they would like be reaching that far. That you could make a case for both, and I don't think that. Yeah. Okay, last rule here for today. I've already said this, and I'm probably gonna say it a bunch of weeks again and again and again because it's so very important. I've told people in the past, if they only knew this rule, if they only knew this and knew nothing else, they could probably get over half of the questions right, just from this. This is all they would need, and you could probably get half the questions. And that is, I've already said this, but I'll say it again, which is the economy rule. Or, I'm fine if you call this less is more. The concept is, you want to say things as simple as possible. If you can say something in less words, and you're not going to lose any meaning, you should just every single time say it in less words. I know it's contradictory because when I'm standing up here talking to you, I've repeated myself like a million times. I've like said unnecessary words. I've done all of the things that I tell you not to do. But it's way easier when you're writing to immediately see, okay, this thing means the same thing, I don't need this. Or like, whatever. I'm just gonna put the subtext of it so you can write this part down. If you can say something in less words, and this is important too, without losing meaning, do it every single time. Every time, if you can say something in less words, just use less words, please. I'll pull a few examples that I've actually seen before on ACT tests. This was question 1 on, what year did I say? 21 or 20, I actually can't remember, jeez. Okay, maybe 22, I have no idea. Okay, one of the 21 or 22, I can't remember. The first question, question 1, the first passage starts with this. In the summer months of June, July, and then gave you some continuous. Why is that not so good?
Because it's listing out all these months.
Yeah, if I said the summer months, you know I mean June, July, and August, right? I don't, this is kind of repeating. There's a very famous English grammar higher up nerd person who's one of the people that makes the rules that has an opinion that if you ever repeat something when you write, you're calling the reader stupid. I don't think that might be like pushing it, but like Tuna, he has a point here. Like this is, the reader knows that June, July, and August are in the summer. Duh. So like, why are you saying it?
Yeah,
You don't
can
need to.
say in June, July, and August, or you can just say
In the summer months.
summer.
Both are fine,
Yeah.
but don't say both, right? That's ridiculous. Okay.
Less is more in this English.
One more example here. This is probably one of the worst sentences I'll ever write on the board, but no, let me say it this way. Okay, it said as reads. I laughed at the funny joke because it made me feel giggly as it was comical and humorous. Do you see how many words I just used to say the most simple thing? Okay, let me show you. Okay, I laughed at the funny joke. Okay, I laughed. Obviously it was funny, and it's a joke, so I don't need that word. Because it made me feel giggly. Well, obviously you're laughing, right? So I don't need this. As it was comical and humorous. Both of those words mean funny, right? So I don't need this either. So I could have just said I laughed at the joke.
It seems like you're trying to meet a word count.
Yeah, I was
for
about to say
professor.
that.
Right. This
Exact
is something
same
when you're
thing.
trying to like babble on, you just, and most of the time this is going to come up as two describing words that mean the exact same thing. So like, oh, like my friend is just very comical and humorous.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, no, you should just say, he can be comical, he can be humorous, but he's not comical and humorous, right? 'Cause that's, 'cause you're just repeating yourself, that's silly. So that's the idea of this, yeah?
Will there normally be like, it'll be like 2 words and you just have to like get rid of one?
Get rid of one. Yeah, the answer choices won't make you pick which word is better. It's not fair to be like, okay, my friend is comical, my friend is humorous, which one is better?
But like in this one, you like got rid of funny since like if you laugh, it's more funny. It won't make you like assume.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, that would be too much of an ask, yeah. But yeah, this is the idea. We'll come back whenever we do and practice with this, but yeah. Cool. All right, thank you, online people.